Greetings, I'm Thomas Caldwell of the Aurelian Column, and this is Meditations, a well-needed break to think about what really matters in life and in the world around us. There's a great deal of divisiveness here in the United States and elsewhere around the world. More so than usual, divisiveness is a force of nature if you really want to get philosophical about it. But it all depends on what you're being divisive about. But the reason things have gotten the way they've gotten in recent decades is because of a system that was traditionally followed by mystics and traditionally followed by scientists, which people seem to have forgotten. And that is the power of being wrong. All progress involves change, and all change involves something being different. Now, the universe has operated the way it's operated pretty much since the beginning, you would think. It's just a matter of what we've been able to see, what we've been able to sense, what we've been able to figure out. That's changed. But the only reason that's changed is because what we believed earlier about a given situation was proven to be wrong. And this is the way science operates. You come up with a hypothesis, and then you prove or disprove that hypothesis. Very simple, really. Mysticism was traditionally the same way. If something worked, it worked. If it didn't, it didn't. There was a process that was introduced to the world in the early 20th century called scientific illuminism, which was the scientific method applied to the objectives of religion. And that's still something that a lot of the mystery schools that are still around do operate under. But the way we look at the world right now, compared to the way we looked at the world 100 years ago, 50 years ago, 1,000 years ago, is different. And it's different because we realized we were wrong about something, because we discovered a further truth, and then we decided to move ahead. It's actually quite simple. Unfortunately, something called ego has gotten into the mix, and this is where people refuse to believe that what they used to think was wrong. Now, some time ago, I wrote a story up on my column on my Substack channel, and it was about basically using a term of the modern times, being red-pilled later in life. The older you get, the more you're going to hang on to the old ideas. And that's because if you come to the realization that what you believed for so long was wrong, and you made life decisions based on that assumption, you're going to be very, very regretful. Doesn't matter how much of a strong personality you have. Nobody wants to go there because that's going to take some joy out of your life. And take it from someone who's been through that process. It's very hard late in life to admit certain things you believed for decades were totally false. Now, if you apply that to the current political environment in the United States, or the social environment, you see the chance for real chaos. Now, let me throw a story at you from ancient Buddhism, and that was the story of Siddhartha, who eventually became the Buddha. Now, I'm not a Buddhist, although I've spent a lot of time around that particular tradition. In fact, I've studied many different traditions. But he came up with something known as the middle way, which actually is something you see in Christianity whenever you see Jesus on the cross with the thief and the good guy next to him. The middle way, the opposite from all extremes. Now, how did he get to that? Well, he became an ascetic, which is one of those very skinny people you see in loincloths in India these days. And they were around back then, apparently. And he starved himself. He didn't eat properly. He tried to overcome suffering by not being bothered by it. It's a very long and a very beautiful story, and I would urge people, even if you're not Buddhist, to look into it. There's a lot there. But he basically realized after a period of time, which 6 or 7 years, as I think it was told in the story, that he was on the wrong path, that he was doing it all wrong. And he ended up breaking his fast. A wife of a farmer, I believe, as the story goes, gave him a bowl of rice porridge, and he started to nourish his body. And he went along what is called the middle way. Extremism is not a very good place to be, and extremism never works with true spiritual development. And this is something that's taught just about everywhere, if you look for it. Now, imagine the strength that was needed to overcome one's ego to think, for what I've been suffering for 6 years was for nothing. Well, he learned in the end that it was a bad idea, but granted, that was a very expensive price to pay. But he still paid it. So if you apply that to social beliefs, for example, slavery. Slavery had been around forever, and it still is in a lot of places on this planet. Politically uncomfortable a statement that is, but it was eventually decided that that particular concept was wrong. We had to change. Although I don't know anyone who looked back in history and said, oh my goodness, think of all the people whose lives were wasted over slavery. Well, you can, but again, the price had to be paid. People go through change. People change their minds. It used to be considered a source of strength. Abraham Lincoln was considered quite a good politician because he could give a speech when he was in the House of Representatives and when he ran for the Senate and all that other stuff. He was able to get people to change their minds. It's a sign of growth when you change your minds about something. So what I'd like to leave you with today is a very simple concept. Ask yourself not what you believe, but why you believe it, how you got there, and where it's taking you. If you believe a certain political candidate represents everything you value, great. If you're going along with that merely because you're following an old habit and you have not evolved, and evolution is a real thing, folks, and it applies to more than just biological organisms, ask yourself why you believe that. Why do you believe in changing things drastically? Civilization was operating very well for a very long time until maybe about 100, 150 years ago, things started to drastically change in the West. Some things changed for the better, some things changed for the worse. In fact, in the last 20 years, that's happened. Ask yourself not what you believe, but why you believe it, how you got there, and where it's taking you. And apply that. Is it time to change your way of thinking about something? Perhaps. Is it time to change your behavior? Perhaps. And that can be applied to society as a whole, and sometimes that means returning back to what is normal, or what was considered normal, just like Siddhartha. Siddhartha, who became the Buddha, was a very wealthy prince. He was heir to the throne of a kingdom back in the day. He decided to throw that all away to seek enlightenment. And during that journey, he went to extremes until he came back to the center. He came back to the middle way. So applying this is not just good practice for whatever life or society is throwing at you. It's good practice for everything. Because change often leads to something good. That's it for today. If you like this segment, you like other aspects of my work on Substack, please like and subscribe. Consider a paid subscription. I can be reached at aureliancolumn.substack.com, aureliancolumn.substack.com, and there are other outlets. But I would like to leave you today in peace and prosperity. Be good, be safe, be vigilant, and good day.